Run it back, Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros.
I had to call because I'm reading the comments and everyone's saying trade Joel Embiid for a big package, and I just wanted to remind people who we're talking about. We're not talking about a regular player. We're talking about a two-time. He was a scoring champion. Debatably should have been MVP 2 years in a row. And I just want to remind people that he's the best player we had since Allen Iverson, and we got lucky drafting him. If he wasn't hurt in college, we wouldn't have got him. We wouldn't have gotten him. We would have drafted Andrew Wiggins, and Andrew Wiggins is not even close to Joel Embiid.
No.
The only problem with Joel Embiid is he's hurt all the time. But when he's healthy, he's the most dominant basketball player in the NBA. There's only one player I'll put above him, and that's the Greek Freak. Other than that, there's nobody in the NBA. I'll put him above Durant. I'll put him above everybody. And when we was playing in the playoffs against the Miami Heat, and we was down 2 games, everybody was like, oh, we need Joel Embiid back. When we got down 0-2 and we came back, the energy changed. We was 0-2. Maxey and James Harden couldn't do anything. And I'm not hating on James Harden, and I'm not hating on Maxey because I love both of them. But the energy changed. The series changed when we had the best dominant big man in the game. And if we had him the whole series, and if he was healthy, we would have at least got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and we probably would have won the finals. Who knows? But I just want to remind people, we're not just talking about an average basketball player. We're talking about the most dominant force when healthy. That's the problem, when healthy.
Yep.
And it's the biggest problem is Doc Rivers' coaching, not putting Matisse Thybulle in. It took him this long to put Matisse Thybulle in. It's the ball movement. I do agree. I think the ball needs to move around. I think there needs to be a first option and a second option and a third option, but the ball has to move around. It can't just be post up Joel Embiid gets double team, turns the ball over, or it slows the offense down too much. I mean, sometimes when we're in the playoffs, when we run that half court offense, it's good, but the ball has to move around. And I always go back to the Spurs. The Spurs had debatably the most dominant power forward / center, Tim Duncan, and the ball movement was just the best. It was a boring way to play the game, but the ball movement was so freaking special.
Yep.
If we could somehow have a better ball movement, and we can have and Doc Rivers puts the right players in at the right time, that's the problem.
Yep.
Rebounding, hustling, Joel Embiid getting healthy, and there's no one that's going to stop us. But I feel like people need to hold their horses on trading Joel Embiid. That's nonsense, in my opinion. That's crazy talk. Maxey and James Harden couldn't do nothing against Miami Heat. So I just want people to hold their horses on trading Joel Embiid, because if we trade Joel Embiid, it's going to haunt us. I'm just telling you that right now. We're not winning.
I don't think they're going to trade him.
I just wanted to get that off my chest. I just wanted to get that off my chest real quick.
I appreciate you, Mike. Hey, thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
Good call, man. Great caller. W's in the chat from Mike. W's in the chat from Mike. Yeah, good caller, man. And I agree with basically everything he said. The one thing I do want to respond to is I really, really like the Spurs comparison, because how do you use, and even though that was in the late 90s, early 2000s, how do you use a dominant center and win? How do you have a dominant center be your number one option or best player on the floor and have a winning offense? And yeah, it's moving the ball. It's keeping a decent pace. But if you really look at the way Tim Duncan played the game, first of all, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, you had Bruce Bowen. Don't forget about Bruce Bowen, everybody, who you want Matisse Thybulle to be. A lockdown defender who can catch and shoot at 40%. Bruce Bowen. That team had everything was perfectly constructed around Tim Duncan. Everything. All of the pieces worked together perfectly. Tony Parker being the great three-point shooter, but pick and roll facilitating point guard. Manu Ginobili, I guess you could look at, you could go Tony Parker, James Harden. You could go Manu Ginobili, Tyrese Maxey. Not the same type of players whatsoever. I'm just saying as far as their role on the team fitting around Tim Duncan. You could go Manu Ginobili, Tyrese Maxey. Maybe you can get a Bruce Bowen out of Matisse Thybulle. But yeah, everything has to be constructed correctly around the center, and the game plan has to make sense. The biggest difference in that comparison is Doc Rivers and Greg Popovich, who Doc Rivers thinks he is, and he's not even in the same stratosphere at all. So, but I like the take, man.